Now we turn to a former Chinese Communist Party insider who dared to criticize Chinese leader Xi Jinping. She's making headlines again by suggesting ways the Communist Party could fall. We sat down with the Epoch Times China editor Annie Wu to find out more. Hello Annie, thank you so much for joining us today. Great to have you back.
Thank you, Tiffany, for having me.
So there's a post that's garnering attention in China by a former professor for the Central Party School of the Chinese Communist Party, Cai Xia. So who is this professor?
Yes, so Cai Xia is a former professor of politics at this party school, which trains young cadres to become party members. And so she's quite powerful and influential within the party system because she has such a high position. So actually recently in June, an audio recording of her speech during a private gathering of party elite leaked online, and people heard her talking about the party and criticizing it, saying that it was at its dead end and that it should be fundamentally abandoned. And she also criticized the leader of the Communist Party himself, Xi Jinping, called him a mafia boss. And so this kind of garnered a lot of attention within the online community in China and also within the party itself. So much so that recently she actually was expelled from the party. The party made an announcement and said that she will no longer be part of the party and she will also have her retirement benefits revoked.
So you mentioned that she was expelled, and after that she wrote a post in which she put forward 3 ways in which she thinks the Chinese Communist Party could fall. So can you expand on those 3 ways?
Sure. So the first point she made was that the Chinese regime's actions could garner such attention from the international community that the entire world unites to fight against the Chinese regime, similar to Hitler during the Nazi Germany or with Gaddafi with the Syrian conflict. And in so doing, the party also itself has its agenda in which the Chinese people could feel united against foreign enemies while people are essentially distracted from the internal problems within the country. And the second proposal that she put out was that the party could potentially reform itself, and similar to during the Soviet Union under Gorbachev, there were reforms initiated that could itself bring about the collapse of the party. And the third point she made was that there could be so much internal fighting within the party that all this conflict brings about the collapse of the party itself.
And so going on her second point about internal party reform, how likely is that to succeed?
Yes, so many Chinese people actually hoped that the party would reform and liberalize along with the way its economy has adopted some capital market reforms. But the reality is the party has in fact become increasingly more hardlined in the way it controls many facets of Chinese society. And so people like Cai Xia and other party elites or people who were part of the democracy movement in the 1980s during the Tiananmen Square protests also feel that reform isn't really possible under these circumstances. The party essentially will need to collapse in order for China to welcome democratic reforms.
So Cai Xia is known as what's called a party princeling, as in she comes from a family that was very prominent in the party. And so a lot of people are viewing like her turning her back on the party as an example of her third point. So can you expand on that a bit?
Yes, being that Cai Xia is within the party system, it is very rare for someone of such high stature to so publicly condemn the party. So many China analysts believe that her being so public in her dissent against the party is also evidence of the disagreements within the party and how the future of their ruling can become.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Annie. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Tiffany.